G'day everyone. For those who came in late, you're listening to Expand the Fan Podcast.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.
Hello, we are the Chronicle Chamber team, and this is Expand the Fandom Podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email on chroniclechamber@gmail.com, or you can subscribe to us via whatever platform you're listening or watching this through, whether that's YouTube's, iTunes, or any of your Android apps. Welcome along to the March 2021 episode of Comics and News. This is episode 185 of the podcast. Tonight, my name is Dan Fraser, and tonight I'm joined by Stephen East. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very well, Dan, and yourself?
Good, not too bad, although I can see Jermaine Parker shaking his head. He's a bit worried about how this has started and hoping I'm going to settle into a rhythm. How are you, Jermaine?
You've missed a couple of podcasts, and you can tell.
Rusty, and then you've thrown me into the role of chair, so I can feel the wheels of the bus going straight over me. But anyway, I'm sure I'll slip into the rhythm of it. There's been a few podcasts. You guys have been doing some awesome work with your interviews, particularly you, Jermaine, with your interview, both of you with Terry Beattie, and since then with remind me, 184.
Terry Beattie was 184, and then 186, which we have already recorded, is going to be Ben Rabb, which I'm looking forward to listening to. So yeah, that's actually, while it's in the past for us, it's actually in the future for all our listeners.
Well, in the future,
sounds like a Christopher Nolan movie.
That's a solo one for you, isn't it?
Yes. There was a few issues, but that's all addressed, and we give you a proper shout out and stuff like that. Look, it's Terry Beattie was a blast. I know I had fun.
I really enjoyed that chat.
Yeah, it was a real blast. And then Ben Rabb, let's put it this way. I throw the gauntlet down about him getting on board for a TV show or something like that, and he responded. So,
right,
because he's got runs on the board when it comes to TV, doesn't he?
Sorry,
he's got runs on the board when it comes to TV.
Yes, exactly. So he knows the Phantom. The Billy Zane movie was the avenue, or the what got him hooked into the Phantom. He wrote for Team Fantomen for Moonstone as well, and then he has done TV shows like Warehouse 13, Flash, Arrow. Beauty and the Beast for the teen fans out there. So, Dan, I'm sure you've probably watched that one. And he's done some others as well. So,
very good.
He's got the runs on the board, and it's a good fun episode.
Excellent. Well, I haven't heard it yet, and I'm very much looking forward to the recording going live. And I think that's a great little teaser for 186 when it comes out in probably a week or two after you're listening to this one. But this one is 185, as I said. It's the March Comics and News for 2021, and it is a bumper podcast. We're going to try our best to keep it as short as we can, because while there's a lot to talk about, we've all got everyone listen. Well, we'll try and keep it short. We'll try and stick to the script as best we can. There's not that many comics to review, but there's a whole lot of news that we want to talk about. So anyway, let's get stuck straight into it. We're going to review, to begin with, the comics that have come out of Frew, issues 1886, 1887, and 1888. Which is the three-part saga of the Vultures, by Peter Anderson and Anthony Spey. And it was really great to see these three, I think, come out in consecutive issues. We're going to save the filler stories, or the backstories, by Paul Mason, and the Revenge of the Vulture story, which was in episode 3. We'll save that for the next stage, but let's talk about Saga of the Vultures parts 1, 2, and 3 as a whole to begin with. So It's a villain.
Can we start off by saying that that we are trendsetters? We said 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, in our podcast that we need to see more stories about the Vultures. They are all in our top 10. I think a lot of us are even in our top 5 villains of the Phantom. We said we need more, and boy, have Frew delivered on that one.
Well, we can claim it. As I was about to say, it's a villain we were all calling for.
Sorry, right?
That's right. It was episode issue X-Band 172. If you want to go back and listen to that, our top 10 Phantom villains. And yeah, you're right. We did call for. I think all of us who were in that podcast said that the Vultures were one of our top 10, and all of us called for more of it. And as you say, Frew has delivered. I feel like Dudley and Glenn and Renee probably plan a little bit further ahead in time, and we might be on their coattails. But the fact that we published first is important, so we don't have as much of a lead in time. So yeah, like it's something we were all calling for. What do we think when it arrived?
Stephen, you go first, mate.
Well, yeah, I'm looking. Well, like you said, we're all looking forward to the Vulture story, and I think it was a great concept. I think the story was good. Like it's having the Phantom come across the Vultures in this town. It was set up nicely. The artwork is superb. The artwork is really good. Yeah, lots of good action. There are a couple of negatives, but I'll let you go with your positives first, Jermaine.
Yeah, no, I really like the artwork. Anthony Spey, he's done some stories for Fantomen. We've talked about him for about the last year. I believe he did a 2019 Christmas story, which was his first one. And then he's done a couple of Fantomen stories since, including the one where President Nawaga becomes president again. So yeah, and then we've had probably 10 to a dozen of Peter Anderson's. I felt what I liked about it was that Anthony Spey was because these are published in black and white, as you can see. You know, the stories are in black and white, and it's harder drawing in black and white than it is in color. But I thought towards the end he was, becoming very, very good at it and stuff like that. I liked it. I liked the origin story of the Vultures, of the main origin story in part 2. The cover.
That's right.
That's my favourite cover of the 3. I just love that. My daughter.
Now these covers were. These look familiar. Like, weren't they at the 2018 Supernova?
It was the one. It was the Melbourne one just before COVID, or when COVID had just started hitting. So it was Melbourne this time last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure I saw these earlier, but I could be wrong.
But they're great covers. I really love the covers. I love the concept. I love how we're getting in the origin story of the Vultures as well, because we know the Vultures, but when we're actually getting to know a little bit more about them. But yeah, there was one joke in there in the second part which I actually did like, and we have been sometimes a little bit negative towards Pity and his jokes before, but I love this one here. If you're on YouTube, you should be able to see it. No, on this screen here, where they're talking about the punishment of the thing, and the guy goes, "Send him to my mother-in-law." I just thought that was good. I like that one.
You have a great relationship with your mother-in-law there, Jim.
My mother-in-law actually loves me, but anyone who's been married knows that mother-in-laws can be a little bit annoying at times.
Mother-in-law jokes might be the only ones we're still allowed to say. I don't know. Or maybe we're not. I don't know. It's an interesting time.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan? What did you like?
Well, there was I'm glad you raised the covers, and it's interesting what you said there about having seen these covers a year ago. So that probably does talk to my point about the Frew knew what they were doing about the Vultures before we did. But and I don't have it in front of me. I can't find my part 2 for Love and Money, but I do remember that I wondered if this was the joke that you were going to raise, Germ, because there's a comment in there about when we're hearing the origin story. Obviously, the way that that's told is that the Phantom has fought his way into the Vulture's castle and then decides he's going to have a half-hour, 45-minute sit-down and a cup of tea with the Vulture's historian for whatever reason. But that's okay. It's good for the story.
That. I didn't mind that.
He was very casual, but that's okay. It's a 3-parter, and it was a great way to get the origin story in. The historian, the storyteller, at one point says a joke that, and I wish I had it in front of me now, that was very much along the lines of, "Hey, I'm telling the story, you just enjoy it," sort of thing, which I think might have been a tongue-in-cheek or a little commentary from Pide as an author to the people who are reading his story.
You're ruining my story. You said they searched the forest for hours and hours. How do you know that? You weren't there. Neither was Casper. You're ruining my story.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of Old Man Moz. How like when he used to tell the stories, and then like the kids would get all excited and stuff, and he would like wait, and he would say, "Who's telling the story here?" And they have to go, "Sorry, Uncle Moz." And
it's a great teacher technique, but I did also think that it might be. It might be Pide just having a little word to the fans out there, saying, "Hey, I'm telling the story. You just sit back and enjoy it."
I wonder
the facts in the way of a good yarn.
Yeah, I wonder if it's more about the fact that it actually inserts the Phantom more in that part, because possibly. Part 2 there's not much Phantom for obvious reasons. And so it kind of gets him in a little bit more, but yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe maybe there's a bit of both or something. When we get Peter Anderson on for a podcast, and we have started talks about that, we'll ask him what the point of that, and we'll ask him what his relationship with his mother-in-law is as well.
I'd imagine it's probably healthier than his relationship with his fans. I don't know. But no, look, as a saga of 3 comics, that you've already talked about the covers. I agree with you, Jermaine. The cover to 1887, part 2, is going to have to be a short price favourite at this stage for cover of the year. I also really liked the previous one with the green background and all of the Vultures. I thought that was a really cool way of showing the generations of them and the multitude of people in the gang. So and that vibrant green is not a color we see a lot of on, despite him being a jungle character. Probably don't see a lot of that on the front of covers either. So yeah, it really stood out for me. Yeah. I'd love them both as posters.
Yeah, I reckon they would work quite well as posters. Maybe for Supernova 2021, which I think is in our bit of notes. Now, Stephen, you mentioned...
Hang on. It's almost got like that glow zone feel to it. Yeah, those glow in the dark.
Yeah, although, it could be a series. The Vultures...
glow in dark poster like that, it might scare a few kids if those.
It might.
You wake up and there's all these. Yeah. Stephen, you mentioned you had a couple of negatives. I'll be interested in hearing that. I've got probably one negative, but yeah, I'll be interested in hearing what your negatives are.
But my negative, I hate being negative. But if I'm going to be critical, sometimes the jokes are forced. Not some of the jokes, are good and work, and other times, why'd you say that for? I know a fellow who loves a good pun, but
that's true.
Yeah, it's like I was trying to think of a carpentry pun that would work. Think I nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could actually hear crickets in the background, Stephen.
We do have that audio clip somewhere if we could, this part of the podcast.
No, like, seriously, I could actually hear crickets in your background where you are,
probably
Stephen.
Could. They've been nuts around here this season.
Might be at my place, actually. I can hear him outside.
But that's the type of thing. Unfortunately, that's the type of reaction I've been kind of getting, reading some of the lines in the in the dialogue. Oh, really? Like,
So,
it's not Dad Joke
have you
Friday.
got have you got examples in part 1, 2,
No, I
or 3?
don't, because I didn't look at it before I came onto the podcast. I just remember it. There was
Yeah.
one that was, yeah.
Because
It seemed a lot like, the old 80s goofy pun. You got to make a quick quip type thing.
Because I didn't actually. Now, I'm going to leap to Peter's defense here. I didn't actually feel like there was as many puns in these 3-part stories as there was in, say, like his last, the Outlaws story and stuff like that. I actually thought this was a lot more punchier and to the point. Maybe I missed the jokes. Maybe they went over my head or something. What about you, Dan? Did you?
Like I'm probably conscious when I read a Peter Anderson story that's a criticism I've had in the past. I'm probably with you on this one, Germ, though. I maybe I'm overreading the let me tell the story joke. I probably didn't enjoy the mother-in-law joke as much, but but I didn't think that it was that they were forced as much as they have been in previous stories. And I know that has been a criticism, but that I've had in the past. But no, I enjoyed these stories in and of themselves. I liked the concept of, well, it went very quickly actually. If I remember, part 1, like for the first 3 panels, Phantom's in Germany, and then all of a sudden he's moved. I thought that was a weird, then he's traveling through Austria or whatever country it is that he finds the Vulture's castle. But from there, it's I think it's a good sort of half detective story, which is what the Phantom is. It's an adventure story. The squeaking wheel on the mill, I thought was probably overplayed. Like if you didn't realize that was going to be a factor towards the end of the comic, like it would have been the worst red herring of all time, because we heard so much from the wheel. Yes, we get it squeaks, it's old, so that was probably overplayed. But
foreshadowing like you wouldn't believe.
Like you would not believe, yeah. But look, as a whole package with essentially what is a 2-part story that has the origin of the Vultures inserted in the middle. I enjoyed it. Probably the end, I don't know. Probably trying to leave another in to pick that part of the story. I would have been probably satisfied if that chapter of the Vultures had been defeated. There's so many chapters of the Vultures that we didn't necessarily need. That young girl, which is again was a sort of an odd character, but no, as a whole, I enjoyed it. I'm not sure that I would want to go back to Elizabeth necessarily, though.
See, I don't mind having that loose end, for lack of a better word, with who was it, Elizabeth? So I was just flicking back through part 1 and seeing a few things, but having a depicted like a female Joker, I didn't like.
Yeah, I didn't really get her as a character, to be honest, in terms of
she seemed like a maniacal
young girl who joins the Vultures. It just didn't. The justification for that didn't really make sense to me.
I would. I wonder if there's going to be more about her, and we haven't seen that yet. If you know what I mean, like a backstory of her, or because it is weird, because this is the first female Vulture we've seen.
Yeah,
I just thought she was like a daughter of one of the Vultures.
Yeah, but
that's what I had her as, and then
no, it did explain that, didn't it?
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it explains where she comes into, where she fits into it, or anything like that. But I'm intrigued whether Peter is going to use her to explore the Vultures more, because I know Peter Anderson is a huge Vultures fan. He's wrote about him in Requiem, in this as well, so he must have a bit of a love affair with the Vultures.
And I thought Requiem was sensational.
Now, is that the war one?
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I love that one.
So I just wonder whether she's going to play another part, and because I thought the ending was a little bit anticlimactic, and that's probably the right way of putting it. But I wonder if this is not actually the end, so to speak, and that's why it kind of feels like you're like, well, what's happening? You know, why was she alive? Or, you know, the Phantom just kind of wrapped up the place and then he just kind of walked, and then we get the epilogue with her, is, you know. So when I first read it, I was like, what? You can't end there. No, that's not an ending, you know, that wasn't an ending for me. But the more I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, hang on, maybe it is going, you know, there is going to be another part. And so maybe, maybe the ending's not, when I first read it, I was like, oh, but maybe that's just, that's a good thing, because it's making me want some more, and we can explore her as a better, as a more of a character and learn more about her.
Yeah. So introduce this new character. She seems bloody psychotic, and so she could be a good adversary for the Phantom. So I don't mind her surviving the fall, or whatever it was that
she does. Stephen, you made a brilliant point about her being a bit like Harley Quinn. She does. Yeah. She does remind me of that.
And that's a criticism I have with anything that in a lot of stories, if they try to be like someone else, try and be a bit more original. Like when that came out, I thought, oh, really?
I didn't mind
Joker, Harley Quinn. Yeah. I don't mind her surviving, but the way it just
her
seemed
being
depicted.
Harley Quinn. I didn't mind it.
That's just because you like, I can't remember her name.
Well, look,
the joke's going to fall flat now.
She wears a lot more clothes than Harley Quinn, so, you know.
Well, it was, 300 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, I suppose so. In this panel, she is showing her ankles. So,
oh wow,
risque. I should apologise. It's Elspeth is the way her name's actually written, not Elizabeth. I was reading that wrong for a long time before I had to go back and check myself. I think they. As I said, the Vultures has got so many chapters. I don't feel like the 18th Phantom needs to go back and deal with this chapter again. I would probably have been just as satisfied if
wasn't it the 4th Phantom?
Is it as far back as that? So there
That's
you go.
That's why I said 300 years. I thought it was the 4th.
Sorry.
I was trying to give you the hint. I'm waving 4.
All good. I don't know that I need to go back and read another story about the 4th, because again, he'd have to go to Austria, and I feel like, and I've said this before, that a lot of the early Phantoms must have had to spend some time in the jungle to establish the legend, and I know that
much time there.
The travel times back then and all the rest of it, and I know we don't want to delve too much into what is the reality of this comic strip and comic book character, because of course it's bent and twisted. But for mine, a lot of the earlier Phantoms really should be spending most of their time in the jungle. So I don't need him to go back to Austria or whatever it was to spend.
Does it have to be the 4th Phantom?
Well, it would have to be the 5th at best if you want to have Elspeth come back.
Or the Elspeth could go to Bengala.
Yeah.
That seems unlikely. Unless there's a war there and there's a lot of dead bodies and she needs to start robbing them. I did like Piday's tactic or whatever you might say about it. His use of the language, where we as English readers would recognise words and be able to understand short phrases. He hasn't shied away from using the language of the geography that he's writing in. And I think that worked really well. It wasn't over the top, but it was enough to go, I that's right, this is set in wherever. So
particularly in issue number 1, or the first part of the story. And he knew what was going on, but I thought, I wonder what would happen if I put got my phone out and got the translator going over it, and it started flashing up and the English versions of the words.
Yeah, awesome.
It said what I thought it said.
Very good. All right. So, any other comments on the Vultures story from these 3 Frew comics?
No. I reckon we go to the Revenge of the Vultures, seeing it's another Vultures, and then we'll do the War ones.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, in issue 1888, it was a 52-page story. So, a tad more expensive as a result, $6.50 ticket price. But it had a full filler story, if you like. So the backstory, the second part was a full story, an old, 1970s old.
75.
75, Team Fantomen story by Ulf Grunberg and Bertil Wilhelmsen, who was one of, if not the very first Team Fantomen artists. So, Revenge of the Vultures, what did you guys think of this one?
I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I did as well.
Yeah. It seems like I like the Phantom ship stories. You know, he's got to be Mr. Walker in Cabin 7. And, you know, who's that mysterious man? And then, yeah, I just think it flowed well. And I just finished this just before joining on that podcast, because I realized there was a few pages that I still hadn't read yet. You know, breaking out of the wine bottle. I liked it. It was just it flowed well. The artwork is great. I really like the artwork, the darkness of that, and it really does show that the Vultures for the grave robbing bastards that they are.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the wine casket, and it went for like from page 38, 39, 40, 41 to 42 is when he got out, and so it went for quite a few pages. But I actually really enjoyed that whole sequence.
I think it was folk-like in my mind, that section. You know, the way he's drawn it, like early on. Probably not quite so much Cy Barry, but maybe the other two. It just had that feel in that section there. You know, how's he going to get out of this mess?
Yeah,
and it takes 3 or 4 pages for him to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I really enjoyed that element of it as well. I thought it was amusing on page 44 when the henchmen have gone down to, you know, make sure that his body's dissolved in the wine or whatever was supposed to have happened.
Wine.
And it must be strong wine. Anyway, so he's tipped the barrel over. It's spilt. Wine's gone everywhere, and he's escaped. They walk down into the basement and go, "Oh, where is he gone?" There's no commentary of the barrel's exploded and there's a big puddle of wine we've both just walked through. They make it like he's just gone invisible. So anyway,
it's drained well.
That's right. But I really liked, the way that it finished with the battle against the villain of the week, and
the sword fight.
The sword fight. The demasking of the Phantom, and then he who sees the Phantom's face dies an ugly death. Old Jungle saying. I really liked the use of that trope. It's one of my favourites. I remember that so fondly from the first time I read the Goggle-Eyed Pirates, and so anytime that comes up is a tick in my book. So no, for a 1975 Team Fantomen Ulf Grunberg story, and I've been critical of Team Fantomen in the past, but I really enjoyed this story. It ticked a few boxes. It was a Lee Falk villain that we wanted to see more of, and then we always wanted more people to explore. This was done 46 years ago, and really well done. So it's a shame we haven't
what
seen
we've asked for, isn't it? It hits the nail on the head. It's what we've asked for.
Yeah, it does
in that podcast.
Now,
before you go, Jermaine, I've got a question for you because I think you're the fella to answer it.
Yeah.
Bottom of page 49. It's the second time in my life someone has torn off my mask. Both times a legend has come true. What was the first?
In this one, I reckon it would be the Goggle-Eyed Pirates, is it the Toadmen? I think it's the Toadmen story.
The Toadmen are in the Goggle-Eyed Pirates.
No, the Toadmen and Goggle-Eyed Pirates are two different. They're two different pirates. So it was the Toadmen, the chief does it and he gets shot by a Marine. So that was the first time someone died after seeing it. So that would be what it is. But there's also an error. And now I'm not sure whether this error was a Frew created error or whether it was a Team Fantomen error. So this is on page 36. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see the panel. So basically he is saying, "Aha, the passenger on the boat in a mask and costume. Now I recognise you. It was you who destroyed the organisation's nest in Bangala." Now, the Vultures never actually had a nest in Bangala. The story that they're talking about was the Lee Falk Vulture story. The Phantom actually travelled somewhere to break up the nest. So there's a little bit of an error there. I haven't quite figured out whether it's actually originated from a Team Fantomen story or whether it got in the translation and the editing whether Frew created that error or not. So, yeah, for those who like a little bit of that type of stuff, it'll be interesting to see if anyone else picked that one up. But did you guys like the fact that, because when Frew first announced or advertised Part 3, it was going to be the Robot Phantom, which was by Massimo. Do you prefer us getting the backup Revenge of the Vulture story, or would have you liked to see the robot story?
Well, the Revenge worked really, really well, particularly seeing as it's a whole bunch of Vulture stories.
Yeah.
And we'll get the future. Was it the robot one at a future date?
I thought it was a smart move by Frew.
Yeah, I agree. A bit of a no-brainer in a sense that you've got this Vulture story. Yeah, absolutely. Package it up with the other Vulture story. Yeah. Although I was a bit disappointed, and I think if everyone's happy, I'd like to move on to the other filler stories, because I was actually really enjoying the sequence of Phantom in Vietnam stories that we saw, episodes 1 and 2, or parts 1 and 2 of the Saga of the Vultures. It would have been so cool if there was a Vulture or two appeared in the Vietnam War, and that tie-in had happened. Now, as we've said, this is months, years. At least 12 months. We know that the Nam stories have been with Frew for probably 12 or 18 months. So you're trying to tee this up a long, long time ago, but it would have been so cool if the third Saga of the Vultures story had been a Paul Mason Vietnam Vultures appearing there. That'd have been a neat.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Just because, I guess I like the Paul Mason stories, the Vietnam ones. There's actually been a bit of chatter on Facebook today as we're recording about the Vietnam stories. I'm surprised this conversation hasn't happened earlier, where Paul Mason has very delicately and smartly towed that middle line where he's having a go at both sides. Or he's portraying both sides as doing horrible things, and the Phantom is on that line of like saying, hang on, it's not the Yanks are the good guys, or the commies as the good guys. You're both doing bad things, and there's the poor Vietnam people that have been caught in the middle of it, and he's towed that line very, very well. And I'm surprised there hasn't been a bit of a chat before today. So hats off to Paul Mason for able to do that. What I liked was, after reading each of these parts, I went to Wikipedia and Google and all that, and learnt, and went in a real rabbit warren of learning more about what happened in the Phantom comic, and getting a lot more immersed and watching TV shows and stuff like that. And so for myself, I actually found that really educational, and I'm sure I probably wasn't the only one.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd be very surprised if you came across anything in your research that disagreed with or was a counterpoint or whatever to what Paul Mason had portrayed, because that is, I'm a history teacher and I've studied Vietnam and taught Vietnam several times, and it is so true to my understanding of the historical records. Like, they're so well researched, and the stories are very well informed. It's not just, I saw a Vietnam movie and I feel like I can write in the time. Paul knows his stuff about this war and the sense of the reality that he portrays. So it's all factually accurate as far as I can tell. And the way that he portrays what must have been the living standards and what it was like to actually be there. It's an incredible talent that he's displayed there. I think we're absolutely the beneficiaries of it.
I also like how the Phantom, because there was, the top of my head, I can't remember the exact moments, but there was like where was it? Da Nang and stuff like that, and there was all these places. The Phantom, because sometimes when people try and force the Phantom into history, they don't really know how to portray the Phantom because they're not used. The Phantom's a hero; he's supposed to save the day. But I thought how he portrayed it, where the Phantom didn't win, he wasn't able to solve it. Where the real hero was not actually the Phantom, but it was the other people. I liked how he did that as well.
Yeah, agree. And the fact that I think particularly with the second one, have you ever seen The Rain?
Yeah.
The Phantom is hearing the story. Like, he's not at melee trying to stop the massacre. He's not coming in on he's not there's no heroes of that day. And so it would be entirely inappropriate for him to suddenly be there on the scene. But then to be hearing the account of it from someone who was there, and the way that is retold and relayed, and the emotions that that the Phantom goes through as he listens to that story and his response, it's really powerful.
And the way that story is told is excellent. Going the old school Rex finding the chronicle, and reading something that it was hidden, and this is a bit secret, and then and then a little bit worried, the way that before the page turns, you're not sure what the Phantom's done there, but and you're around reassuring, trust the Phantom, trust what's happened here, and exactly like you said, Jermaine, go out and research a little bit more, and we've had conversations even with Tony DePaul, and I just thought it was really well done, and I don't have much of an idea about the Vietnam War. Dan, if you've taught it, you obviously know a heck of a lot more than me. But I found it really interesting, and I'm not a war guy, but I've really gotten into this.
Yeah, it wasn't a Rambo takeoff or a parody or anything like that.
And no one's being glorified here.
Yeah. Now, if I had to put a criticism, it would be on some pages the font can be a little bit too small. But that's being fairly picky. But I loved having the chain of patience. It's good to see the chain of patience back in a Phantom comic. Hasn't happened very often. There's a great article online if you want to learn more about the chain of patience. But,
where did you find that, Jermaine?
On Chronicle Chamber, funny enough. It's a good website.
It must have been the first, again, I wish I had them in front of me, but the must have been the end of part one, the It Ain't Me story. It had all the case notes and all the historical details it had on the last page. So not that one you've just shown us, Jim, but the other one. Again, in terms of a starting point or terms to Google and start looking up, that's just a treasure trove. So
and he did the same thing back in the war annual as well. I thought that was a great literary device in telling the story. Yeah.
Probably the thing that I missed was where do these stories fit in the ongoing trying to find and I can't even remember the name of I
was trying to remember that before as well.
I think it's a Wambezi Prince or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure Wombo was one back in Lee Fawkes' day, a Wambezi Prince. But so where these fit in that ongoing saga would have been cool. But you've got these eight-page stories. There's not the time for them to fit. And when he delivered these to Frew, I'm sure Paul didn't know what order they'd be published in or anything else. So you can't really have a continuity in there so much. But even perhaps a line at the end that said, right, well, and then I kept moving on my way to find the Wambezi Prince. That might have been a way to make sure that it was still part of the continuity, but that's, it's such a minor criticism. Doesn't even bear thinking about, really.
Yep. Fairly minor criticisms, yours and mine.
Yeah.
All right.
And do you find that you can no longer look at the story titles without singing them?
Have you ever seen the rain?
And I didn't pick up on It Ain't Me, but it ain't me, Fortunate Son. So, yeah.
Credence.
Oh, is it? Credence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them. Greatest
Right.
Clearwater Revival.
Trust.
What was the first? What was his first one? Was that another Creedence?
It was, but remember we Googled it, and it was Stephen. You weren't on that podcast. It was me and Dan, and we Googled it, and we got the wrong band. It was some really really bad song. And then Stephen, after you listened to the podcast, you berated us for about a full week or something, like like not getting the right song.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd do.
It goes to show you come to expand for fandom facts, not music trivia.
I remember that now.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we move on?
Yeah, we'll move on. Now, we do need to say at this stage that we're not going to review 1890, it must be, is it? Or 1889, sorry, which is a part one. It is out and people will have read it, but we're not going to review it at this stage because we want to wait until we've seen part two. And like we have with Saga of the Vultures, be able to review that as a package. So we'll save that one for the moment. Instead, we're going to move on to... Sorry, Steve?
Which is just as well because I don't have it yet.
There you go. That's it. That's now that's the reason. But we are going to move on to, and I'm just reaching to see where I have put it. Here it is. We're going to move on to. Steve's holding it up as well. The Pirates of the Red Dragon trade paperback, which has been available on the Frew website for I want to say a month, maybe even 6 weeks now, and so a lot of people will have that probably maybe 3 to 4 weeks. I received mine as accompaniment to the Phantom board game, which we're going to talk about in a little while as well. But to start with the trade paperback, guys, straight off the bat, before we start talking about any of the stories, what did you think about the cover, the packaging, the feel of the finished product?
Awesome. All that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's
presented really well.
The second trade paperback's probably my favourite, then this one, and closely followed by number one. Maybe one, then this one, and then three. But yeah, this is a top notch. It's thick. It's got great art. The coloring's good. If you want it now, we're going to review it. But if you want to review just in probably more detail than what we're going to do now. There is a video on our website and our YouTube channel as well about this, where we've actually gone into great detail about each story, each page. But I thought it was it's a great book. I wish Frew could do more of these. I've said it before, but I would rather an extra trade paperback than an annual.
Yeah, but they are producing one a year basically at this stage. Yeah, I can understand the desire for more, but that's part of what makes them special as well, as there's not 1,000 of them. So
that was only 4
so far. Now, as Jermaine said, we reviewed the stories and all the rest of it in that YouTube video. So certainly go back and look that one up. We've also had a chat about some of these stories as well, because unlike the general vibe of Frew and Dudley Hogarth, he doesn't like reprinting stories unless they're more than 20 years since the last time that Frew reprinted them. The bulk of these stories have actually been reprinted in the last 5 years, which means that printed the first time in the last 5 years, which means that we've actually reviewed these already as stories. So if you want to talk about, we'll start with, as we go through the trade paperback, we've got Rise of the Red Dragon parts 1 and 2, which was the prequel to the Pirates of the Red Dragon saga. Now, the Red Dragon saga was printed for the first time by Frew in 2017, and so we reviewed those at the time. That was back in Expand podcast number 66, believe it or not. That feels like 120 podcasts ago. My goodness. I went back and had a bit of a listen. It's nothing like the sharp quality that you're listening to today. Geez, we
were worse.
It's frightening.
We were worse. Oh my gosh.
Rise of the Red Dragon parts 1 and 2, the prequel, as I said, written by Dharma Canty and Jason illustrated by Jason Paulos. We reviewed those in Expands number 98 and 102 back from 2018. So, that's only 3 years ago. So it's actually a relatively recent reprint or a quick reprint for Frew. Obviously, in the context of the board game and putting it in the trade paperback, we understand that. But what I would say about that, one thing we didn't talk about in those reviews was what the stories looked like in colour, because we didn't see them in colour at the time. We're getting them in colour for the trade paperback for the first time. So rather than dwell on the storyline or anything like that, let's just talk about these ones quickly in terms of what we thought colour added to the story.
Added so much.
Yeah.
Jason Paulos's work is so much better in colour. Like we've been critical in the past that it can look a little bit busy in black and white. When it's in colour, and it's the way he uses his tones, and so like this panel's good as a good example. There's a lot going on, but you're drawn to over here where the action is, where the most important people are because of the colours, and these are all plain colours, which it kind of helps draw your focus and stuff like that.
He uses it to create levels. Like you can see what the foreground, the background is. Whereas, you're right. When it's just black and white, they all look the same level. That's why it looks so busy. You're absolutely right. And because he colours it himself as well, he's colouring to what he's drawn for what he knows he's going to colour, if you follow me.
Yeah. I feel when he works in black and white, it has that real sinister feel about it. But then when he's got it in the colour, it has this real pop.
Yeah.
That's why
and we've talked about it in the first issue of the year, so that would have been our January Comics and News, which would have been probably about 4 or 5 episodes ago, where that whole story was in colour as well, that whole comic. So I think every time Jason Paulos he does a story, it has to be in colour.
Ooh, must be.
Must be.
Right. Steve, do you want to argue with that?
Look, I like it in colour, but I also like the sinister feel of a dark story in black and white.
Yeah, no.
It would be interesting to see what he might do if he was recoloring or colouring Phantom by Gaslight, because that era needs to be necessarily quite sinister and grey sort of thing. So it'd be interesting.
So apparently, and this is what I think Jason has told us this, Dan. I think you were with me when he told us this, is that every story or every page he produces for Frew, he gives it to him in black and white, but then also in colour. So, and that's just part of the package that he provides. So, in a sense, it might cost Frew more to publish it in colour, but it doesn't actually cost them more in what they got to charge, because he's getting it. Frew are getting it in colour anyway. So, I think while that fee's the same, let's produce it in colour.
Yeah, you're right. I do remember being part of that conversation. It was at a Supernova, maybe in 2018, that he said that to us, and I was blown away by the fact that he does that. But he said to us that's just how he'd like to see it, and so he wants to make sure that it's possible for Frew to publish it that way. So.
And I also like the original stories in colour as well. I just felt, and I'm not even sure who did those colours, to be honest. Oh, it was the Swedish guys that do the Team Fantomen stories. I just thought they did a really good job, and it didn't take away the artwork from George Bess, and I really like George Bess's work. Yeah. He's like one of my more favourite artists from that stage, along with from that era, along with Jamie Valley. I really like the colours. It goes well with it. So
smooth.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I just really like the colours in that. And yeah, it's. You made a point before about them being published before. I'm glad we got to see them together in this trade paperback in colour. It just. Even though we've got it 3 or 4 years ago, it's nice to get it.
It's a different comic now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you talk about the colours making it pop, you probably will be checking out page 150 and 151, because that's the reason why there's a little gold PG label.
So when you used the word pop, was that on purpose?
Oh, you read into it what you will, Jim. Did I think about that much? I don't know. Did I? But certainly that seems it's certainly more apparent than I remember from the black and white. The nudity that's displayed in this particular story.
I'm glad that when I passed this to my boy just to have a quick look at it, he didn't see that.
If you're showing
back when I opened up, did the unboxing of the board.
if you're letting your under 12 certainly read this, you probably want to get the glue stick out and stick pages 150 and 151 together.
What my mum used to do with my stepdad's surfing magazines, she'd get a black art line and actually like draw, like hairy chests on them, beards and stuff like that, or draw like little baggy clothes and stuff like that. Anyway, what did you think about the news story?
Yeah, so I was going to go to that next, and obviously we've got a sequel now to the Pirates of the Red Dragon trilogy. We've got the prequel that was done by Dale McKenty. Julie Dietrich has written the sequel. Now, before we talk too much about the storyline, we've got to acknowledge the moment, I suppose, that Julie Dietrich has become the first Australian comic book author. First Australian female to write a Phantom comic book. Trying to get the phrasing just right. So it's an extraordinary thing that it's taken until 2021 for a female author to have a Phantom story published, but it's a credit to Julie and also to Glenn and Renee to reach out and be, as they've been doing over the entire time in the Frew crew, looking to employ Australian creators and looking for a diversity of creative teams. So we've got to acknowledge Julie's contribution there. It's a significant marker.
Yeah, it is. What I like about it is, and we talked about this in the 5-year review in probably a lot more length than what we have now, is that they've looked to make the Phantom more than just your grandfather's hero. For so long, for the last probably 15, 20 years, the Phantoms, that's the comic that my grandfather reads, or, I know the Phantom because my grandfather reads that and he's got a stack of them at home. And one of the ways to do that is to make it more inclusive. And the way they've done that is they've got Phantom artists that are younger than us. And let's face it, we're middle-aged now. You need younger creators than us to be creating Phantom stories. And now what they've done, they've even taken a second step forward, is where they've now trying to, now they've got a female writer as well who hopefully will, bridge that gap and get some females on board reading the Phantom as well. And hopefully, the way I see it is Frew is making this an inclusive comic, and hopefully we can see the benefits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if more people are going to come and read it, we're going to want quality stories. What did you think of the quality of the story of the sequel, the adventure of the Dragon's Leg, which is a pretty clever pun once you start, that you'll understand once you've read the story. It's an interesting one where we've got a story from 1979, which, in the same sense as I've just talked about the saga of the Vultures, I would have preferred for the villain to die at the end. At the end of the 1979 trilogy, the villain died at the end, but then in 2021, a new author has brought them back and explained how they survived and revived that character who we thought was dead. Thoughts on that?
No more spoilers. I haven't read it.
I didn't have a problem with that because it was explained in a clever way that it's half believable. And let's face it, there's been worse far out ways of heroes coming back from the dead in other comics. This is at least half explainable. My biggest concern's not with that. I I liked it. There's a lot of aspects that I like about this story. Like I like about there's a part in there when she's talking about like other. I think she says something along the lines of there's 7 other hideouts or something like that.
Yes.
So that perked my interest straight away.
Just
Like,
opens it up, doesn't it?
yeah, like and then there's all those the army of female ninjas that she had as well, which we haven't seen. We've seen in like 10 pages, but we haven't seen them since. So
Yes.
like I'm putting 2 and 2 together already straight away. So I like things like that. The artwork is amazing. I thought
Yes.
Ivan Peterson did a great job in coloring a modern style artist. We've made comment before that Ivan's brilliant at re-imaging daily and Sunday stories. I thought he showed his ability to be able to also do modern stories in this, which is a real feather in his cap. I thought that he needs to be mentioned about that. The artwork I really enjoyed. Wendell's one of my more favourite artists. I am biased, and I've got some of his original artwork. So, but
That doesn't make you biased, mate. You've got most of the people's original artwork. So,
is there anyone you don't have?
Ray Moore. There was some. I'm not sure whether you call them plot holes or whatever, but I got a little bit confused with a couple of areas in the story. That's probably my only criticism with that. And I thought overall, for the first story, I thought Julie has done a great job, and I can't wait to see more of her.
I really enjoyed it. I thought that it did have me diving back into part 3 of the original saga to go, hang on, I thought that Princess Sin had died, and how can this have happened? And then you go back over that sequence of how she was crushed by the rock and whatever, and it's explained, like you said, well enough to go, oh, okay, I can accept that. It's fine, and then it becomes a really cool plot device in the sense of, the symmetry, and I'm trying not to give away things for Stephen, but explain things to you, Germ. The symmetry between what they say happened to Princess Sin and what's going to happen to the Phantom. I thought that was a really cool plot device as well. And I really, I was just flicking through it now, and I was taken by, not sure why it was written as a part 1 and a part 2. Maybe there were plans to have this in the regular series before the trade paperback idea was conceived or whatever. But just the way as it's turned out by producing it in the same book, the way that part 1 finishes with what's quite tragic, and again, probably Stephen, not trying to show you too much, but a really powerful and tragic scene. And then, whether it's pun intended or not, Stephen, you'd love this. The splash page, it literally says splash down in the corner here. The splash page for part 2 is a cover image in itself, but is also part of the storyline. And I thought that was worked in really cleverly. Whether that's Julie doing it or Wendell's interpretation of her script and the way that he's decided to do that, between the two of them, I think they've absolutely nailed that. So, as a whole story,
I have a question about that. Is this a bad guy, or is this one of the guys that in the first part of the first story that was trying to get away, and he told to hold on to the parasail and swim back to shore? Like, it's a bad guy, right?
Yeah, that's not explained. It doesn't. There's no indication either way.
Yeah. I was like, that's one of the areas I'm looking at it and I'm going,
yeah,
is it a bad guy? Is it not? So it kind of like that bit left me a little bit confused.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, because at that stage you've got 2 people in the ocean battling with sharks circling. It doesn't really matter whether he's a bad guy or a good guy. He's just a person, and they're both battling for survival. And the Phantom is trying to help him, and it doesn't matter who it is. So that worked for me. I didn't mind that at all.
Yeah, I thought the other thing was like the way the Phantom kind of got out of it, and he gets out, and then towards the end, and and then like how the princess kind of gets captured or doesn't get captured.
Yeah,
that just like I'm not really sure what happened there. Just I don't know, and they're probably the two kind of the bits that I kind of get lost in the story, and then I don't like the parasail.
Yeah, no, the hang glider.
The hang glider, yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't like it.
Not a massive fan of that myself either.
The way I
it's
see
a bit
it,
kitschy. That's something that might have come with the
it's
Defenders of the Earth fandom or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
the way I see it, and you know, we grew up on the Lee Falk stories, right? If he needs to go out to sea, he gets the Mora people to take him out there, and you know
Yeah.
that's just one of those phantom tropes. And that's like a phantom trope is, you know, you get Mora people take him out there. A hang glider, just I don't know. But you know, we are nitpicking. But yeah, it had a couple of issues, but overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. I liked it. I think as a seven stories, I really enjoyed it. I would recommend anyone who's listening who's not sure, go out and buy the trade paperback. There's some brilliant art. It's a great cover. You know, it's not a bad price either. You know, if you don't want to pay for shipping off the Frew website, get your local comic book shop to order it in as well. I think it's a must get. It's a must.
Yeah, I agree. And just to make sure I'm on the record, I love Wendell Cavalcanti's art in the last story as well. I think I don't have any of his original work. Wendell, if you'd like to get in touch, I'd love to talk to you. But but I still really enjoy his work. I think the quality of the cover perhaps can get a little bit lost in the sense that it's been around for so long now. We've seen it so many times in connection with the board game that perhaps people overlook it or just go, oh yes, I've seen that before. But to actually have it in their hands now, Daniel Picciotto has done a fantastic job there as well. So and I would agree with you what you say there about the collection of it as a set of 5, 7, however many you want to say, stories. Dale McCanty and Jason Perlis were particularly good and thoughtful about the way they prequeled the story. I think Julie and Wendell have been particularly good and thoughtful about the way they sequeled the story. So, you know, for Norman Worker and George Best to have been able to, you know, create something that then was able to be expanded on either side as a package, it's a really good, a really good, what is it, 300 pages? No, nearly 200 pages of Phantom goodness. So, yeah. I agree. Buy it if you haven't already.
Definitely.
All right. That brings us to Giant Size number 16. I think this is going to be a pretty quick chat because while there's 108 pages and it's got the Panther and it's got Phantom Ranger and it's got Sir Falcon and it's got the Raven, this is a Phantom podcast, not any of those podcasts. So I'm sure if you want to learn all about Phantom Ranger, you'll go and listen to the Phantom Ranger podcast. Have you started that yet, Jim?
I reckon we'll probably hit. Don't think there's much out there. Look, the stories, the production quality is good. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a negative. It can be quite shady and bad photo, you know, bad style. It's good. The stories are fun. They are what they are. The Phantom story is the adventure in the Algiers.
Yep.
It's a great little fun little story. One quick question: would you prefer something like this, or would you prefer like a King Charlton Gold Key story, which we've seen in the past, or do you really don't care?
Yeah, no, I was probably disappointed, I guess is the word, when I opened it and saw Adventure in Algiers. This is a reprint of an old Frew. It's a story that we've seen in Frew 1,000 times. The Gold Keys and the Charltons and that sort of thing, that's probably what I'd prefer to see in this because we haven't seen those printed in Australia before. But this particular issue, number 16 of Giant Size, Also doesn't have any of the Glenn Lumsdens and the Shane Foleys and even the new Fel Mang stories we've seen through Giant Size. This is literally just a reprint of 50, 60, 70-year-old Australian comics. And when I say just, there'll be people who absolutely love that and are reading these for the first time. I haven't read the other stories yet. I've read Adventure in Algiers so many times, I just took a flick through. And whether I actually go back and read this or not, I don't know. But there'll be people who love the fact that these old reprints are coming. I like the Giant Sizes that also have the one or two new stories from modern artists.
I'm the same. Stephen?
I haven't read it. I haven't got it.
I actually thought you were asleep yet. I was going to try and throw you under the bus. Trying to throw you under the bus.
All of a sudden I realised that, hang on, we're not talking about the Crimson Sin anymore. I think I missed that transition.
We're still at that stage of the year when Stephen is closer to midnight than we are in the rest of the states. So sorry, mate.
No, all good.
All right, so
I should be getting it this week, though.
I guess the new thing that we do see in Giant Size is the cover, and it is another classic Glenn Lumsden. I love the way that he does this with the insets of the other characters, and it's his grey suit and all the rest of it. Glenn Lumsden has now done 16 of the 16 Giant Size covers. It seems he's got an absolute mortgage on that position.
And while he continues to produce artwork like that, Frew, don't replace him, Frew.
Since he's synonymous with Giant Size.
He is. All right. Now, of course, if you disagree with any of our reviews, or maybe if you do agree with our reviews, there'll be one of us you agree with perhaps, or you've got a counterpoint, something that we haven't thought of, we haven't said, do make sure that you get in touch with us. And probably the easiest way for anyone to comment on anything these days is just to put a comment at the bottom of whatever platform you've seen this in, or whatever post. There'll be a Facebook post to do with this podcast. Obviously in the comment section below, you see that in YouTube videos, whatever it is. Make sure you put that in there. Let us know what you thought of any of these Frew comics, and that way it's something else for us to think about, or perhaps a different tack we can take in the next podcast. To do that, if you see us on Facebook, you can follow us on chroniclechamber.com. We're also moderators of the Phantom Collector group on Facebook, so we'd encourage you and love more people to join that one. On Twitter, we are at chronicle_tweet. On Instagram, we are at Chronicle Chamber. And on YouTube, we are Chronicle Chamber. So make sure that whatever platform you're listening to or watching to us now, you also check us out on the other ones and comment, reply, hit the bell. I don't know, all the things that people say for social media stuff. That said, we've covered the Australian stuff and have only taken an hour or so over it. I'm sure we're going to now hear from. Have we got something from for Regal this week, Jerm? Do you know?
Yeah. By the time I actually edit this, we've got 7 and 8 already, and then Ankits is doing the review for 9 and 10 at the moment. So it might actually be a review of all 4.
Cool. Now he's not going to be too biased about the covers, is he? And
how exciting is that? Having we talked before about how Frew have listened to us and brought out more Vulture stories. Well, Regal's seen what we've done with the Bushfire book and got one of the local Indian participants in that to do who's done half the Frew covers, and then Ankit is actually reviewing the comics and doing a really, really good job, and he's drawn a cover as well.
So
social influencers we are, my friends.
I think I'm going to have to draw a sketch of the Phantom and send that into Dudley.
I can tell you one thing: with your little singing performance, you won't be getting a job as a fill-in singer.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully we'll hear from Ankit. We'll hear about the Regal Comics. He won't be too biased about how good the covers are. And then we're also going to hear from Mikkel Lick, our Scandinavian correspondent and Chronicle Chamber member, to talk about what's going on with Team Fantomen through March. So I'll throw to those guys now.
Hi, and welcome to another Chronicle Chamber book review. I'm Ankit, and today I'll be reviewing Regal Comics from India's issues number 7 and number 8, which are 85th anniversary specials. Now, the Phantom was published 85 years ago, and it's a monumental time, to be very honest. Like 85 years for a strip to be still in publication is no joke. And as we all know, the Phantom is like the pioneer of the costumed hero vigilante comic strip. And so let's get into it. Now, firstly, before we begin about the individual issues, I'd like to talk a little bit about the common things about these issues. More importantly, if you are new to Regal Comics, you should check out our previous reviews on YouTube for more information, or also look into the Chronicle Chamber website, where we have articles which are more detailed about Regal Comics. So in a brief outline, I would tell you Regal Comics is an Indian publication who've been publishing Phantom in Malayali for a long time. It's been only from August of last year that they got the rights to publish it in English, and they've now been publishing it in English and in full color. Okay, now we get to our review. In December, we got the 2020 Christmas specials. The most important thing that they did in that was the Regal switch to a very thick high GSM gloss paper. Now, this kind of gloss paper is basically the same that you get on the Frew trade paperbacks, or any of the classic DC or Marvel trade paperbacks. So they've continued that on these issues too, and as you can see, it's done really well for the art. And yeah, so I want to get that out. And now the covers have been done by Mr. Vincent Moses Raja, who's done a lot of covers for Regal, and Mr. Abhilash Chako. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Abhilash Chako's cover was featured also in issue number 3. Yeah. So yeah, and there's another thing which is there are supplements for this one. So issue number 7 comes with a mini poster, which is the same as the cover art. Now, the poster's colors, if you can see, is a little bit more saturated, a little more darker than the much more muted and warmer, I would say, the cover. I do prefer this kind of saturation or colors over the much more stronger, sharper version, but yeah, to each his own. And it's basically got Mandrake and Phantom. And this issue comes with a Phantom card, which is again taken from the artwork from issue number 7. So yeah, now another thing which is very unique about these two issues is they both have an interior painted cover art by Roman Felmang. Now, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Romano Felmang, and he's very famous among the fans because of his work with Fantomen and Frew. And most recently, I have this trade paperback of Frew, the volume 3, the Triad Saga. This was all done, all the art is by Mr. Romano Felmang, and it's phenomenal. You guys, anyone, especially the Indian fans who are going to check this out, this is, I just wish these came as posters instead of that. I mean, I wish and I hope to see more of Mr. Felmang's work being featured in Regal Comics. Anyway, now coming to issue 7. This has 2 stories as usual. It has Mandrake's Bon Voyage and for the Florodon Mystery. Now, the unique thing about this issue is Mandrake's Bon Voyage also is basically where the first time we have Mr. Terry Beatty's art being featured. And Regal has, as usual, done a fantastic job with that grade paper as well as very, very good color. The print quality of Regal has been absolutely sensational, I would say. If you look at the stuff, there is no bleed anywhere. I think Mr. BT himself would be very happy if he saw how it was reproduced. It's really done well. Secondly, the next story is a bit something which was unexpected. It's a Lee Fox story, and the art is by Olesen and Fredericks. Now, I'm a big fan of the Fredericks Sundays for their art style, because I think whatever Mr. Frederick inks, it just looks really phenomenal. Like after Mr. Cy Barry, I think Mr. Fredericks has that very classic Phantom style of inking, and even he made Alex Saviuk's, I think Defenders of the Earth was also inked by him, and that looks great too. Like it's a Fredericks inking the moment you see how it is. And yeah, so like this is the first time Lee Falk. I think this is because this is the 85th anniversary, and not having the original creators in like some sort of mark in it might look, I don't know. I mean, I think that was the original intent for giving, but I'm not a big fan of the later Fox stories, to be honest. I'm a fan of the Fredericks art only. So yeah, this is something very unique, and it begs the question for me, especially like if they now do they right now have the rights to like the other Fox stories or anything? So maybe see a Cy Barry story finally in Regal. Who knows? We have to see. Also about Mandrake's Bon Voyage, this story is like a modern day classic. I think it's been printed by almost everyone from Fantomen to Frew to, I think even in Brazil Mythos are printing them. So yeah, this is a very momentous issue, I would say. So definitely look out for it, guys. Now, issue number 8. This has 2 stories on the Trail of an Assassin and Mystery of Firehead Peak, and they are both illustrated by Graham Nolan, and both are written by Mr. Tony DePaul. Now, everyone who's ever seen any of my video reviews know how much I'm a fan of Mr. Graham Nolan, because he's the Batman artist that I grew up in my childhood reading, and I've always looked forward to collecting his stuff. And I will say hands down, and I do own the Graham Nolan Sundays from Moonstone, both volume 1 and 2. And I will tell you this, that this Regal have now so far, with this issue especially, have the best represented printed collection of Graham Nolan stories. And these 2 stories haven't been collected in any of the 2 volumes of the Graham Nolan Sundays. So if you want to further your Graham Nolan collection, this is an essential. And especially this, On the Trail of an Assassin is my favorite Graham Nolan story, because it has layouts and its spacing is exactly like one of those 90s comics, like one of the those very pacey, very they're full of action and drama and all of it. If you look at the layouts only, you can see there's a lot of things happening on this. Whereas the Mystery of Firehead Peak is a very old school folk like story. It's got fantasy elements and stuff. It's very unique. It's a very different kind of story, and as most know, I never talk about the content as such or want to spoil it, so you have to read it for yourself. So yeah, issues number 7 and 8, go pick it up, because Regal needs all the support that they can get if you want these books. But also, coming to think about Mandrake's Bon Voyage, Regal did announce that they are going to start doing Mandrake comics also in English and in color. So maybe this issue is like the point where they are kind of introducing all the Phantom fans, making them kind of warming them up for the Mandrake series. Now let's see where that goes. More comics, the merrier. Just go out there, support these guys, and yeah. Thank you for watching. Happy Phantoming. Hello, and welcome to another Chronicle Chamber book review. I'm Ankit, and today I'll be reviewing Regal Comics from India's The Phantom, issues number 9 and 10. Now, those who aren't familiar with Regal Comics of India and their publication of the Phantom in full color, which they started in last year of August, you can check out more details about Regal and the previous issues that we've already reviewed in the Chronicle Chamber website as well as the YouTube channel. Now, before I begin the review, I would like to point out that in February, Regal had released issues number 7 and 8. Now, as those who are aware about how Regal have been publishing and their schedules, they usually publish 2 issues with a gap of a month in between. So this came out in February, issues 5 and 6 came out in December. But exceeding all expectations, suddenly after February, in March we have 2 issues. Now, does that mean Regal is now going to start publishing 2 issues every month? If yes, then that would be great news, and I really hope that is what it's going to be. Anyway, let's get back to the review. Now, issue 9 and 10, there is something I would like to point out, especially about the cover art on this. Issue 9's cover art has been done by me, Ankit, and it's my first work with like in any professional illustration for that matter, and it's also on digital. I have been drawing thing from childhood, and the Phantom, drawing like a Phantom is like a dream come true, and I'm really glad that I got the opportunity and the honor, especially thankful to Regal and their editorial that they allowed this. And this is actually based off art from the first story, which was here, this one. So there are I went through a lot of iterations because I didn't want to just copy the thing that Terry Beatty had drawn, and I pushed my own ideas and editorial and everything. You can see some pictures of how things went, like how it developed one by one. It'll be put on screen here, but anyway, getting that across, the next issue is done by, the cover art is done by Mr. Vincent Moses Raja, and those familiar with Regal will probably know Mr. Raja has been doing covers for the Phantom ever since the very first issue, and he's probably been on this is his 5th cover if I'm not mistaken, probably, yeah. So, and this is actually probably my favorite one also, and this is also based off a panel of a story, the ghost story here, I think somewhere here. So now that we have this, we'll go on with the reviews. Now, firstly, the paper quality and printing, everyone knows how much I've harped up about this, and just to put everything in context, the paper quality is glossy and thick and as good as any of the Frew trade paperbacks. So those who are well aware will know, like these issues have the finest quality of paper, and the printing fidelity is fantastic. And another thing is, if you buy direct from Regal, you get freebies like this one. The issue 9 comes with the freebie of the Phantom sticker. This is again an illustration by me. I had to draw the full figure for this freebie. And issue 10 comes with a mini poster, which is again based on the art from the cover itself. This is a really cool poster, that way the good mark and the skull. So now coming to the individual issues, not going to spoiler territory, this book has one of my favorite Terry Beatty Sundays, Death Stalks the Fifth Phantom. It's the story of, it's like one of those flashback stories told by the Chronicles, which is absolutely one of my favorite, and it has got this sense of danger and vulnerability. The problem I have always felt with some of the older Phantom stories is that the Phantom always feels invincible, and stories like this, really, where the Phantom is put in a situation of like danger and all, it's great. The Powerhouse Gang, on the other hand, is a very light, I would say a much lighter hearted story. I won't say hearted, but it's a lighter story overall. And again, but it's a great story. It's a crisp, short, and I won't say short though, but it's a very crisp story done well with everything coming together. And now for issue 10. Issue 10 has the ghost story and Iceman. Now the ghost story is basically again like it's a story about again Phantom, the 21st Phantom, how he uses his legend and how everything. It's a very standard Phantom story. Whereas the Iceman is again a story which just shows the rich history of the Phantom. Like, it goes back about his ancestors. I think it's about the 15th Phantom, if I'm not mistaken, about how the 21st Phantom is trying to bring back, or rather finishing the story of the 14th Phantom. Like, an incident happened that involved the 14th Phantom, and that it was unresolved, and it takes them like. And another great part is that Kit and Heloise are they are very prominent in this story. So you see the Phantom not just as the ghost who walks, but also as a father figure, guiding his children and giving them a taste of what they might have to encounter when they become the Phantom. So yeah, and if you look at the printing, the stories and everything, this is a very good package. So again, like this is something that's happening every time Regal are bringing out a new issue. The combination of stories and everything is just making it great. Now, one thing I would like to point out is I've noticed Regal always, whenever it's a story by a certain artist, they always put the Sunday drop-off panel that the artist draws. So Terry Beatty has this, but strangely, though this is a Terry Beatty story, they have chosen to go with a drop-off panel that has Ollison's work. So that was a bit strange. Yeah, that's the only thing I noticed. And yeah, both these issues run for 56 issues and 56 pages. Sorry, and yeah, get them. And I hope another thing is, with Regal right now, India is bracing for another second wave of the pandemic, and Regal have already had a lot of issues with distribution of the books. And very honestly, I just hope and wish the things look up for them, because the stuff they're bringing out is absolutely solid. These books the quality of these books rather is at par with any Marvel or DC book that's coming out. And so it would be a real shame if they can't go on with this series. I would want this series to run for like years, because so many stories and so many possibilities, and this kind of quality of printing and colors and separation. Great job. So yeah, and happy Fantoming.
Time again for some reviews of Fantomen comic books. Today we have 2 issues, number 5 and double issue 6-7. Starting off with number 5. Great cover by Luca Arbata, one of his best in my opinion. The editorial page includes an interview with the Boss Studio about the action figures. I'm looking forward to these. They seem great. The main story is the Sunday story The Little Detective Who Disappeared, written by Tony DePaul and drawn by Jeff Weigel. It was published in Frew 1882. My son and I liked this story, but felt it could have been a bit more tight and used the detective a bit more. She didn't say any words really, but I mean, it is still a really good story. It also featured an Easter egg when they are in Sweden. I wrote more about that in a Chronicle Chamber article. You should check that out if you haven't already. And then there was a black and white reprint. Let's see here. By Ödesguldet, The Gold of Destiny, with art from Özkan Erap. It's about this old jailbird that has hidden gold from one of his old crimes, bird at the sea, but he needs help from his son to retrieve his riches. But Dave spots the man's skull mark and informs the Phantom. Ooh. Yeah, it's an okay story, in my opinion. Let's move over to 6-7. Again, a cover from Luca Arbata, and again, it's really, really good. When I saw a preview of this issue, I got so excited. It's this great cover and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Phantom stories. So let's go through it. Ett nät av lögner, that should be like Web of Lies, written by Claes Remierthi and art by Kari Leppänen. It's the new story of the comic book. Quite intriguing historic story set in the 1620s in Great Britain. I enjoyed it quite a lot. And then there's the first reprint, Story of Devil, and that one, as many of you listeners might know, it's very close to heart by me because this is the one I based my card game on. And I mean, it's a really great story. It has won Story of the Year every time it's been published. This time it might not. I don't understand why they didn't use Ivan Peterson's great coloring that was used in the trade paperback given out by Frew and went with this black and white. I think it's a shame, really. But yeah, it's a good story, but would have been great to have it with this great coloring. Yeah. Then there's an article, and you can vote about the best cover. There's also an article about that on Chronicle Chamber that you should check out, and you should vote before 5th of April. And then there's a one-page story that I thought was really funny, and it might be the last one we will see from Allan Sonne, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was funny. Then we have one of these Özkan Eralp stories, Mysteriet med pilringen, The Mystery of the Arrow Ring. Yeah, like this retold folk story that he redo the arts. Also this I would enjoy it more if it was colored, so most of this comic book is without color, and I think it's a shame. And then it's the first part of The Dolphins. It's the origin story of Salomo and Nefertiti, the dolphins. It's quite a fun story, but I don't think anyone would put it in their top 10 story. Yeah, and then we get to the preview of the next issue. We will get a new Frew story by Pid Andersson and Johan Boyks. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce those names. Ondskan lurar i mörkret, and that was called Evil Lurks in the Night, and it's also the continuation of the Two Dolphins origin story. Yeah, and that was all the issues. So let's go over to the news. And part of the news is that this is the last issue where Mikael Sol is editor. Next issue will feature Andreas Eriksson. And other news item is that from Kari Lepänen's webpage we can read about his ongoing project, The Floating Border, the story is called. And the quote from him is: "The story may be the last of Claes Remierthi's work in Phantom, because he is going to leave Egmont, which published Phantom stories in Sweden, and the stories are also sold to Australian Frew Phantom magazine. I must say that I'm worried that one of the best script writers is not valuable in this business anymore, for I have been accustomed to his manuscript and what happens to me when my works depend on others, often weaker scripts and new unknown writers." Oof, that's really bad news. Claes Remierthi knows the character and the world of the Phantom very well and produces most of Team Fantomen stories, and I think he's mostly the one deciding on the future of Team Fantomen stories. So if he's leaving Egmont, that is really bad news. Well, over to you, Chronicle Chamber, and happy Phantoming.
We're going to end podcast 185A there. Please stay with us because we'll be touching upon the news in 185B in about a week to 10 days. Thank you for listening to us.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
The ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom